Good afternoon. I will start my presentation by posing a question. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the words organizational control? Most of you thought of rules and regulations, or a boss in a hierarchical system, or a system, one that selects right people, guides their behavior, and uses rewards to keep everyone in line. You are all right. Organizational control is all of these. But here's the interesting part. It is much more than rules, systems, and hierarchies. It can be embedded in softer norms and expectations, in organizational culture, in social institutions, and in unexpected rules and unwritten endeavors that nobody ever explained to you. How important are organizational controls? Most corporate failures, Boeing safety failure, Volkswagen Dieselgate, or closer to home, automaattesti's financial misconduct, or even Stora Enso's Rakku scandal on the Hukkajokki River, they all trace back to ineffective controls. The direct cost alone averages 8% of turnover in monetary fines and losses, excluding the compounding burden of employee turnover and reputational damage. Yet, control in society is a contentious, a dirty word. And organizational control comes with its dark side. Some of you, perhaps a slight tension just now, a memory surfaced, a micromanager, a pointless policy, a system that treated you like a machine, deprived of your emotions and individuality. Of course, if you're an accountant, an auditor, a controller, a business professional, a senior manager, an executive, or a board professional, you thought of it as a necessary evil for accountability, if not an outright force for performance. Necessary evil, that's a telling phrase, isn't it? We have already conceded it's evil. Now we are arguing whether it's necessary or not. What if I told you there is a better way to conceive of and design organizational controls? The idea isn't entirely new. Philosopher Jürgen Habermas has spent decades arguing that the most legitimate decisions in any society are those reached through open, inclusive, and reasoned dialogue, what he calls deliberative democracy. I propose to extend this idea and bring it into the domain of organizational controls. I call it deliberative design of controls. Before proceeding, let me acknowledge that this idea is culmination of several projects with several colleagues in the department. And more importantly, is a direct extension of my recent works with my colleague David Derricks. So, what do I mean by when I say deliberative design of controls? Let me start with a simple observation. In most organizations today, and in majority of cases, controls are developed and designed by select few group of experts: controllers, business process and technology specialists, auditors, and accountants. The most important ones are then reviewed, debated, and approved by the board. And then they are handed down to the employees who must follow them, the line managers who must enforce them, and the teams on the ground who must live with them every single day. And this is the problem, because people who have to follow these rules, they are seldom in the room these rules are written. Deliberative model asks us to do something radical. It asks us to treat design and redesign of controls not as a technical exercise, but as a fair conversation, a structured, principled, multivocal conversation. Before anyone writes a rule, sets a threshold, or builds a compliance system, 4 rules of engagement must be followed. First, everyone affected gets a seat at the table. frontline employees, line managers, everyone. According to Gallup's State of the Global Workplace Survey 2025, 88% of employees in Europe and 85% in Finland reported that they are either actively disengaged or not engaged at work. That's not apathy. That's what happens when people are governed by systems they had no hand in shaping. Second, information presented on the table must be understandable to all, not hidden behind complexity, not buried in jargons. And here is what I have consistently found in my research, which we all know, but rarely say out loud. Information in organizations is seldom shared equally. Finance knows what operations doesn't. IT understands what HR can't decode. For fair design of controls, we need to put all this information on the same table in a language everyone in the room can read. Third, genuine attempts must be made to include every voice, not just tolerated, genuinely heard. According to PwC's Global Workplace Hopes and Fears Survey 2025, 48% of employees are afraid of sharing honest feedback, which means the data leaders use to make decisions is built on silence. We can't design fair organizational controls based on foundation of things people were afraid to say. And the most important one, the fourth, the best argument wins. Not the loudest voice, not the highest title, but the most compelling reason. Research by Gallup and Quantum Workplace in the last 2 years has consistently shown that nearly 66% employees feel their organizations do not value their opinion. When people watch good arguments disappear into a black hole, they stop making them. And when they stop making them, organizations lose the very insight they need most. These are not soft ideals. These are the necessary foundation for developing fair organizational controls. And since organizations are not flat, they are hierarchical, and information is distributed across functions, the model of deliberation, based on these 4 rules of engagement that I discussed, I propose is also multi-layered. At the first layer, different experts groups, control functions, employees, as well as business process and technology specialists deliberate together. They ask, what controls do we actually need? How should they work? What is reasonable and what is excessive? As research in applied psychology consistently shows, homogeneous groups, people who share norms, background, and expertise, tend to be cohesive, experience fewer conflicts, and arrive at consensus easily. This is by design. It gives each group space to develop clear, confident positions before the harder conversations begin. At the second layer, the ethical layer, these diverse expert groups send their representatives to deliberate together. But the deliberation is purposefully staggered. First, they are asked to find common ethical ground. What kind of organization do we want to be? What principles should guide how we control and are controlled? This debate is not about solutions. It's about values. Research in negotiation tells us that agreeing on most important principles and values before anything else is not just easier, it's the necessary foundation for anything that follows. Once this foundation is in place, does the second debate begin? Now the focus shifts to creative solutions. And here, this group of experts asks, what does fair control actually look like here? How should we design them? Now, in such cases, diversity can be strength. There is decades of research from applied psychology that suggests that diverse groups propose better and higher quality solutions if they actively deliberate on the knowledge, experiences, and values each member brings to the table. 2 debates, 1 sequence. First, what we value, then what we build. At the third layer, the approval layer, senior managers and board members step in, not to override what has been built from below, but to validate, authorize, and commit. At the final layer, the implementation layer, specialists such as controllers, auditors, business process, and technology consultants are tasked to design these controls, to ask, can these controls actually be built? And are they right? Not just for us, but for people and society we affect. 4 layers, 4 conversations, each building on the last. Not rules handed down from the top, but principles built from below, from the inside out. Now I can already sense many of you thinking, this sounds idealistic. Yes, it can be. But let me offer a few tips on how not to boil the ocean. First of all, for knowledge-driven firms like consulting, auditing, or people-first businesses, those in the hospitality sector, such as hotels, restaurants, and innovative small and agile enterprises, this model can be easily implemented. It can, in fact, offer a competitive advantage. But it does not stop there. Any organization looking to strengthen its controls can leverage on the advantages of this model. Organizations do not need to redesign every control from scratch. They should start somewhere meaningful. Deliberations to identify the controls that both employees and controllers agree are broken, excessive, or simply ineffective. Those are the low-hanging fruit. The controls nobody likes, the controls nobody would resent if they go away. Start there. And from there, build momentum. First successful deliberation creates trust. Trust makes subsequent steps easier. Sequence matters. Let early wins demonstrate that the process works before tackling the more contested and politically sensitive controls. Keep early deliberations small and scoped. 1 function, 1 process, 1 set of controls. And the top management must commit to working on what emerges. Nothing kills deliberative momentum faster than a conversation that leads nowhere. The goal is not perfection. It is the first step credible enough to be repeated. Organizations that are waiting for the opportune moment to redesign everything will perhaps never start. But those that start somewhere will find the path opens up. Because there is another larger force at play. Technologies such as artificial intelligence, cloud computing, remote work infrastructure, robotic process automation, they are already pushing organizations to rethink how decisions are made, how processes run, what controls are needed, and who is accountable for what. This rethinking is coming, whether organizations choose it or not. Deliberative model gives organizations a way to meet this moment, not reactively, but proactively. To treat technological disruption not as an excuse to impose contentious and dirty controls from the top, but as an invitation to build better ones together. Thank you.